Hi, friends. I put together a short slideshow presentation for you about what you will need to know about Chiron being in the sign of Taurus over the next 7 years and how this might be affecting all of us collectively in the world, what we might be on alert for, and how we might want to deal with and respond to those things, and especially how it might be affecting you in your own chart. So let me get that up on screen to share, and we will go through this together. Okay. So first of all, Chiron has a 50-year cycle. Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And I'll get to it in a moment, what Chiron is intending to do for all of us on the level of healing, specifically through Taurus. So it's a 50-year cycle. This year, Chiron just moved into Taurus, June 19th. It'll be there through September 18th of 2026. Then it's going to retrograde and it's going to go back into the 29th degree of Aries. Not going to talk about that right now. But then next April, Chiron comes back and takes up residence in Taurus again for the duration for the next, over 6 years. So this is a very long-term transit. We're going to get the first taste of it now and this summer. So this is a timely video teaching because it'll start to let you work with this energy and notice how it's showing up in your own life. And that's a sign of things to come. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so Chiron is the wounded healer. And the way it acts is that it's triggering some old core wounds that we have, insecurities that we have, in order to gain wisdom and heal around those things. So, yes, it could be painful because Chiron is bringing things to the surface in our face that need to get dealt with so that we can take care of and heal those things. Chiron helps us integrate and become more whole. And Chiron ultimately has the intention of us coming into lived experience and lived wisdom, which we can then share with others as a mentor, guide, or healer. Um, Taurus is the fixed earth sign, very stubborn, very solid, represented by the bull. It's ruled by Venus, which is the feminine goddess of beauty, of love, of what we value and adore. Major themes of Taurus have to do with feeling secure and stable. It has to do with all of our resources, including our money, our finances, our material possessions, what we have that we can depend upon, rely on, so that we feel safe and secure in our lives. It also is related to not just what has value monetarily, or physically, but what our own values are, what we believe has a sense of inherent worth, including our own value and our own worth. It is connected with beauty, comfort, luxury, the way things feel and taste and, smell and look, and that kind of the pleasure principle that we get from the physical world and our interaction with it. Taurus relates to nature, the earth, as well as our own physicality, our physical body. And as a fixed earth sign, Taurus wants to be slow, steady, safe. It is not looking to take unnecessary risks or threaten its own safety and security. Okay, so what might we expect with Chiron going through Taurus over these next 7 years? So it will be a time of both triggering and healing certain wounds that are more Taurian wounds. So our relationship with money, our relationship with the earth and the earth's resources and the animals and the natural places upon the earth, our relationship with our body, our food, our diet, nutrition, and beauty, what we understand to be beautiful. That could be fashion, all kinds of things like that. Our relationship with our own sense of value and self-worth and self-sufficiency. What do I have that is mine, that I value about myself, that I can also, put out in the world that makes me feel good and secure about who I am and what I can offer. Also, our relationship with what we value outside of ourselves and regard as having worth or beauty. So we may expect some shifts in the collective values around what actually do we value and what don't we value. our concepts around scarcity and abundance, this is a big one, and I will share tarot cards about this later to help illuminate through visual imagery what this might look like for us. And definitely, our own understanding of sustainability and simple living may be something that gets triggered and that we're supposed to learn from and heal around as we move forward. How might you personally align with Chiron in Taurus? Attending to your physical needs for security and comfort, heal your relationship with your body, look at your own insecurities and beliefs about whether you feel worthy or unworthy, and what do you need to do to create a sense of self-esteem and self-worth. Creating a real responsibility around your finances, your spending, your savings, your debt, your financial management, whatever maybe you're like afraid to look at, you shop it out to someone else to deal with. This is a time where you're going to be consciously or unconsciously, you're going to be triggered to have to attend to your own financial responsibility. Immerse yourself in outdoors, nature. Many of you, I'm sure, are already doing this, but really consciously, intentionally healing through your connection with the natural world, with trees and sky and sea and animals, as a source of healing and teaching us something new about ourselves. Questioning and then realigning, solidifying your core values. This is going to be a theme around Taurus. I think a lot of our human values or things we held dear in the past might be brought into question in this new age of information and technology and warfare. And, we're going to see how that challenges us to think differently about what we really care about. Um, Definitely, this is going to bring up some concepts around scarcity and abundance. And, so looking at what that means for yourself, what makes you feel abundant? Do you have a sense of faith in abundance? Where do you have scarcity mentality around what is and isn't possible for you? Um, and you may align to Chiron and Taurus energy by finding a new spiritual teacher, guide, mentor, professor, coach, whether it's about your personal body, your physical body, or around something else that is Taurus related. Maybe you need a financial advisor. Maybe you need someone, a spiritual teacher who is helping you understand what you truly value and how to align with that and how to have faith in a higher source of abundance and prosperity. Um, Anything with the earth and with beauty is going to be great. So planting a garden, learning to cook, decorating your home to create more beauty, learning a new art or craft where you're in the creative space of creating beauty. And then specifically exploring and growing in the area where you have Taurus in your chart, because that's where it's personal and about you. So where do you have Taurus in your chart? You're going to pull out your birth chart. If you are watching this and you have been a client of mine, I know I've sent you your birth chart for prior readings. I can always send it to you again, and we can certainly talk about where is this all happening in your chart. Wherever you have Taurus in your chart, whichever houses that's occupying, those are going to be the main places in your life that are going to be themes around which this Taurus Chiron healing and woundedness and reintegration and wisdom is going to be showing up for you over the next 7 years. So you want to look at that. You also want to look at if you have any planets in Taurus, because at some point over the next 7 years, sooner, if you have planets in early Taurus, 0 to 5 degrees, that's going to start feeling this energy, this year, next year. But if you have planets in the later degrees of Taurus, some point over the next 7 years, these planets are going to be affected by this energy. And you could see on this chart where I kind of showed you there, the Taurus is going to come into conjunction. Oh, I have an error on this screen. Haha. Where it says in Leo, that is incorrect. So if you're looking at this, Chiron will come into conjunction with natal planets you have in Taurus. So that's that. It will be trine to any planets you have in the other earth signs of Virgo or Capricorn. So a trine is a harmonious relationship that is really supporting something beautiful to come about. So it's like if you have your sun or your moon in Virgo and Chiron is in Taurus, healing a sense of self-worth, Virgo is very practical and discerning about how to be in action to manage and fix that thing. So, this would be a great harmonious time for you to fix things like that. It's going to square any planets you have in Leo and Aquarius. That's the situation I'm in with all my Aquarian energies. So Chiron is going to square my moon, my sun, my Mercury. So that's interesting to look at. Like, what does that mean? A square is a little bit more of a challenging conflict that creates this unease that wants to find resolution. So it forces you, because of your own discomfort, to look at and heal those things. And then it's going to oppose any planets you have in Scorpio. So you can, definitely reach out to me to look at that together. If you are at least 42 years old, you have lived through one Chiron in Taurus. If you're younger than that, you've never lived through Chiron in Taurus. But because Chiron has a 50-year cycle, the last time it was in Taurus was 1976 to 1984. And that can give us some information about what we understand might be happening. I'm going to stop the share screen for a moment. So I did a quick look at what was going on between 1976 and 1984 around Taurus themes. And if it's any indication of what we might expect in the world this time around. Let's see. So first of all, at that time, earlier in 1970s, mid 1970s, we were, at least in the United States, there was an issue of stagflation, which was a term coined at that time to explain very, very high inflation with very low economic movement. There was stagnation in the economy, so things weren't growing and prices were rising, 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 rising. There was also a fuel crisis. This is sounding somewhat familiar to what is happening in the world at the moment. Um, there was also a international debt crisis, and the way we did money and debt and monetary systems had to get kind of rethought throughout the entire world in terms of currency and debt. Um, there were a lot of environmental issues that happened, as we would expect, with Chiron and Taurus. Wounding and healing wounds around the earth. So in 1984, there was the Bhopal disaster, where a pesticide plant in India exploded and 10,000 people died and 300,000 people were injured. It was the worst environmental crisis that had ever happened in the modern age. Followed shortly in 1989 during the same time period. Sorry, not. 1989 would be after, but okay, so I had made a note about the 3 Mile Island. I could be wrong on the date. It might have been earlier than that, but the 3 Mile Island was a nuclear disaster in Pennsylvania, in the United States. Also during this time, the understanding about acid rain, the ozone layer having a massive hole in it, issues of water resources being contaminated by toxic chemical runoff, all of these earth and the oil crisis, right? And the gasoline prices and all that kind of thing. All of this came to light, um, and that had to get dealt with, right? Money, finance, earth, environment, resources, how we protect those resources. So we may expect to be seeing some of that again. It was also a time of the new age of technology with the personal computer came out during this time. So that's interesting what we valued. What we valued was each of us having direct access in our own home to computer technology. So that's interesting. Another thing that was happening at that time is we went from like disco pop funk music from being the music of the day in the 70s to transitioning into a much more rebellious kind of hard new wave and punk rock, and hip hop was born at this time. So something again about what we value and what we found to be beautiful was shifting away from something old into something new, but slowly, right? So these are just some things to think about. I do want to go into the tarot because interestingly, the card that represents Chiron archetypally in tarot is the Hierophant, and the card of Taurus is the Hierophant. So here we have Chiron in Taurus, and that's actually like its natural astrologically and through tarot, it's the natural place for the Hierophant. So let's talk about what that is. First of all, the word Hierophant comes from Greek, and hieros means sacred or holy. And the word font, I'm not going to give you the Greek because I'll butcher the way to pronounce it, but it means to reveal or bring to light. So a Hierophant in ancient Greek times was like the high priest, the person who had the mysteries, the holy, sacred, occult, esoteric, arcane mysteries, had access to wisdom about those truths and would then be the channel and the one to transmit and teach those mysteries to others. So in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith card, the Hierophant, which in some decks they will call the high priest, is the one who is connected. You'll see that he has fingers pointing up to the heavens and the staff, which is pointing up to the heavens, but then connecting to the earth. The Hierophant is the one who is the transmitter of higher wisdoms. He holds the keys to unlock the truths between the human embodied physical material realm and the higher realms, which he is downloading through the crown chakra, through the staff. Interestingly, so in modern day, we might think of the Hierophant as a guru, a professor, a teacher, a spiritual leader, um, you know, a shaman, a rabbi, something like that. But we can also see it as ourselves, right? Reaching for higher truths, revelations, insights, and drawing it down into our life and how we live those spiritual values in reality. So this is the work of the Hierophant. In Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, the Hierophant, this card, is represented by the letter Vav, and the letter Vav is a tall, straight staff with a little hook up into the heavens. And it's thought of as a connector. So the Vav connects heaven and earth. It connects the body with the spirit. It connects the earthly plane with the heavenly realms. So we could think about this Chiron Taurus period as wanting us as human embodied, um, souls to seek out a higher connection and perspective about what our purpose and our values are here in this realm on the earth and how we are supposed to heal ourselves and the earth itself through our connection to a higher perspective of our values, our spirituality. Here's a card from the Mythic Tarot, which shows Chiron himself, who was half horse, half man, immortal. And again, he has the fingers pointing up to the illumination of wisdom, and he's holding a scroll of wisdom through which he can teach others. Um, and let's see what else I want to teach you. The um, Pentacles is the suit of Earth, and the 5, 6, and 7 are the fixed pentacle signs. So I just want to speak a little bit about scarcity mentality and abundance, prosperity, possibility mentality. The 5 is a change point. 5 represents a square in astrology. This is so uncomfortable. We can't stay in this place. The 5 is often a card where they are out in the cold. They're suffering, they're wounded, they're poor, they don't feel that they have any resources, even though some people will point out that they're passing a church or a place of religious, spiritual possibility and faith that is showing pentacles and light and beauty if they would turn and look that direction or enter. But they're so focused on what they don't have and the lacking of resources, the lacking of faith, that they're not seeing what else is available. Then we move to the 6 of Pentacles, and this seems to be a card about shared resources. Somebody has a lot of wealth and is sort of deciding, holding the power of deciding where to distribute that wealth in align with his own values of justice and of where the need is and, all of that. And two people are kind of supplicants at his feet, begging and asking for the sharing of those resources. And he's sharing with one person, but seeming to be ignoring this other person. Interestingly, also, what he's sharing is not actual coinage or gold. What he's sharing are seeds of potential of that something that can be grown, that this person can use to then become more secure. And So there's an interesting thing happening in this card. You may want to look at this card and ask yourself, who am I in this card? Am I the one who has a lot to offer others? And do I need to be sharing resources at this time? Am I someone who's hoping and wanting resources, but it's not going to come from outside? So I'm going to need to figure out for myself another way to become resourceful. Or am I the person who is on the receiving end and very gracious, but then what am I going to do with that to create self sufficiency once somebody has helped me at the beginning stage? So, interesting things to look at. The Seven of Pentacles is really a very different card. This person has taken those seeds and planted them. And now he's tended his garden and he's cultivated his resources and he's waiting to now harvest, right? So, this feeling of I was given something to begin with, and I am going to be patient, Taurus. I'm going to work hard, dependably, show up, Taurus. I'm going to grow something in nature and value, Taurus, and ultimately I will reap the abundance of that. This is an abundant crop, it's overflowing. So, this feeling of what is it that I want to grow? What am I planting? And then, do I have the faith that if I put in the work and I'm patient and I'm slow and I'm intentional, that I do believe in abundance, that I will be blessed with the rewards and the fruits of my labors. So, those are just some things to think about. I hope this is helpful for you. Absolutely reach out to me during the summer or after the summer, after this first hit between now and September 18th, to let me know your own personal reflections. How has this been impacting you? And, what do you want to work on with more conscious intention as we come back next year, starting next April, full steam ahead, doing this work of healing our own self-worth, our worthiness, our resources, and our relationship with our body and the planet. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this video with anybody you think that it might be helpful for, and I will see you guys soon.